What is going on, guys? This is Steven, aka the Poke Technician, back here bringing you another week of Around the League for the Team Life Orb versus Squirtle Squad Battle Group VGC Draft League. And today joining me, I do have Daniel Walker, coach of the Utah Dracovish. What's going on with you, brother?
It was a great week of battles. It's been a fun couple weeks so far in draft league, and so I'm excited to be here to go over these games and look at how the league is shaping up and how things are going. So.
Yeah, last week we had a lot of 2-0s. Definitely a few this week, but also just as excitingly, we had a lot of teams who lost last week win this week and vice versa. So we're going to get right into things here. Anything you had to say off the bat there?
I was just saying, I was actually looking at it, and I was just calculating some standings, and I noticed there's only one team in each of the division that's undefeated. There are only
Nico and Michael, I think, right?
Teams. After 2 weeks, there are 2 undefeated teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a very even draft league, and I feel like a lot of it's matchup based, that you'll have a better matchup against one team and not as good a matchup against the other, and it's really interesting. There isn't any one team that feels dominating or one player that seems to really be dominating so far, and so it's been a lot of fun. It's a very competitive league. So
yeah, that's for sure. I think we have one team that is 2-0 with 2-2-0 wins.
Yeah, I think it's Michael. His team has been really good, so that's probably the one person who kind of stood out for me. So
I think we kind of underestimated him a little bit. Maybe not so much in the team composition portion of it, but definitely in the coaching and gameplay portion of his of his team. So it'll be cool to see how he fared this week for sure. And keep in mind, guys, we are looking out for the match of the week as well as offensive and defensive MVP mons as we go through this video. So feel free to comment as you watch and as we describe what went on in all these matches.
Yep.
And decide on what you think are the best candidates for those categories. So.
Yep.
Anyhow, the first game that we are going to be taking a peek at is looks like your battle right here, Daniel.
Yep.
Yep. So week 1, you went 2-0 versus Weiss, and then you came in here playing Mike, who I believe lost in an 0-2 fashion last week.
Yeah, he did.
So, any initial thoughts on your game plan going into this battle?
So my game plan, it was a tricky matchup, to be honest, but I was really hoping, the one thing I was hoping he didn't bring was fake out Grimmsnarl. My initial game plan, you can see I have Togetic and Darmanitan there. My initial game plan was to just set up a follow me belly drum with Darmanitan and Sweet, because he didn't have very many super defensive mons that could stop Darmanitan once it got set up. But fake out proved to be hard for that, as well as you'll see here, he had a banded Conkeldurr that put in a ton of work against my team.
Yeah, very powerful, threatening mock punches coming off that banded, conch, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like it was just scary the first game. And like a lot of my game was centered around Togetic. Followed me. I like that redirectional line. He had banded Thunder Punch on Conkeldurr that did 3 force damage in game 1. So after we'll watch game 2, so I didn't feel like I could bring it game 2 after what had happened within a game 1.
Yeah, we did see you kind of go with more of a Riolu tactic, I think, here in game 2, right? So let me just kind of click play on that.
Yep.
And we can have it going in the background as we talk about it here, so.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to see, like, again, this is kind of a tough matchup because everything that you can do, he can also kind of match you in terms of bringing the trick room, bringing really strong offensive pressure. Yeah. What was the thought behind bringing Sharpedo this week? Was that just kind of in the back threat, something to make him think?
I was actually really scared of one of his top mons he had that I was scared of was Mudsdale. I was relying a lot on Cinderace, and I was thinking Stakataka, and I thought Mudsdale would be really good on his team. And so that's kind of where the Sharpedo came in, that I felt like that had a positive matchup there that could
Totally.
Do some good work, and then it just ended up not being the right matchup with what he actually brought.
This is a spot where I kind of wanted to pause the match because I almost think that I see where you're going with this Steel Spike into Jolteon, trying to buff your defenses while Conkeldurr's on the field. But as it goes along, I think you Sucker Punch the Jolteon this next turn, and then you end up Sucker Punching the Conkeldurr next turn. I think attacking at least one of those first 2 turns into the Conkeldurr might have been actually the way to go.
Yeah, I should. If I would have max Airstream the Conkeldurr one of my last Dynamax turn, it would have been a lot better to have that speed boost, and then because I had to Sucker Punch at this point because he was banded into Mach Punch.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the main issues I saw that maybe could have actually secured you a possible win in this matchup because at that point you get your speed boosted up, you get a lot of damage off on the Conk, you can Sucker Punch the next turn perhaps, and you're not weak super effectively obtaining the Steel or Dark type with the Mach Punch coming your direction. Yeah. And then maybe you could coaching up the Stakataka.
I think that crit mattered, or if
it might have.
It was so because I looked at it and it was close to mattering, and if not, a Steel Spike would have, or I was going for Gyro Ball, which would have hit grip. So either the crit mattered, or I probably needed a low roll too with it. Mm-hmm. If I would have got a low roll there, I win that game too without the crit. So it was a close game. You know, game 2 was a lot closer, but a couple misplays on me, and then
some slight hacks there at the end too. The combo of those 2 things, I think, just barely eked it out for your opponent. So this was a 2-0, is that right?
Yeah, it was a 2-0.
Was a 2-0, yeah. So that brings you, I won't spoil it for anyone else in terms of my standing, but that brings you to 1-1 and neutral differential, I think.
Yep.
For the time being. So, and I think we're going to find a lot of those teams kind of in that middle of the pack situation, to be honest. So.
Yeah, no, that's, as I was going through, there's very few teams. There's a lot of teams that are 1-1 with a 0 differential right now. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be one of the biggest things that kind of differentiates people going into week 3 and week 4 and some of the weeks ongoing here. So, good game to you. Really good game to Mike too. You can tell he kind of played his brains out there. So that banded Conk, a very good bring.
Yeah, no, the banded Conk is really what won it for him. So.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna move on to the next game of the week here. Oh yeah, what were you gonna say?
I will just throw out with there, and I think we'll see more, but I do think from this game at least, I definitely think Conkeldurr is at least to start off, could be the offensive mon of the week. Is a contender for that at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. It picked off. Did it finish off Darm?
Yeah, it finished off Darm. It finished off
Cinder.
It picked up 3 KOs in the first match.
Yeah. And barely missed out on the KO on Stakataka too.
Yeah.
So.
It did most of the damage to Stack. So.
Definitely something to look out for there. I have kind of a hidden sleeper pick for offensive MVP, but I'm definitely open to being swayed here. So we will keep Conkeldurr in mind. Oops. All right, let's reset that. Okay, so this second match is going to be between Matt, aka Ian, who played up against Paul and his Ohio Oshawott. And did you consider this matchup before watching the actual games, or did you just kind of go headlong into it when you started watching all the games consecutively?
So I looked at this one a little bit beforehand. I thought it was definitely... there were definitely some interesting things here. You have a weather battle, which is always fun when you see the Ninetales and the T-Tar, and I felt like that was a big part of this game, was trying to figure out how to control that weather, making smart plays to be able to control the weather and take advantage of it. That was a big part of this game, and it was just, I don't know, it was definitely an interesting matchup that you know, Cole is obviously a very dangerous mon and stuff, but I thought it didn't have the greatest matchup into it struggles a little bit. Excadrill, T-Tar, even
Galar Zap.
Teleon.
Yeah.
There was a lot. It was definitely an interesting matchup.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the weather battle here, it's a pretty straightforward weather battle because the Sand is going to be able to win that matchup most of the time, especially considering there's no real Hail Abuser on the opposing team, and T-Tar is going to get the slow Sand up, so unless you're switching into it, you're probably going to see the Sand being on the field the majority of the time in terms of weather. That is going to work in Colossal's favor to some degree because it does boost his special defense, being a rock type, of course. That being said, I definitely looked for things like Excadrill to put in a lot of work. Inteleon, I think, was a really great bring. Even that Galar Zapdos, I haven't seen it do a heck of a ton yet, just based on matchup, but I really think it is a good mon in this format. He will continue to bring it, I'm sure, because it's one of his best offensive output mons, but let's kind of hit the play button here and see how this unfolds. This is 2 weeks in a row, I will kind of spoil it, that Paul has brought the special T-Tar. But this week, I think it worked out a lot better than last week for him, to be honest.
Yeah, and well, T-Tar is tough because it's obviously a better physical attacker, but its special move pool is a lot stronger.
Very diverse.
It has a lot of really good special moves to use.
Mm-hmm. So as we'll see, Urshifu's going to be asleep here. He does wake up and get the detect off, but Iron Head into Ice Beam, I believe, from the T-Tar is going to be able to finish off the Tangela.
Yeah, that was a good play there, and Snow was able to get back up, but like I said, T-Tar is pretty safe here.
Yeah, and we do have a Moongus putting off the Effect Spore pretty reliably against the Urshifu, which is really nice. Yeah. And then we do see the Inteleon come out here, click the Focus Energy. Surging Strike's coming off, I believe, yep, does get a para this time. Yeah. Freeze Drive finishes off the Moongus.
But at this point, Inteleon was in a pretty good position here.
And it's funny that this game came back-to-back against yours because Inteleon was the sleeper offensive MVP that I was thinking of for this week, actually.
Well, I was thinking Inteleon as well, too. I'm not sure if I don't think it was this game, but in game
one, yeah.
It actually picked up a KO on Cole through Protect. It crit, which I'm not sure if the crit really mattered or not.
It's auto crit too, so it's not like it was hacks or anything.
Yeah, no, it was with the... And so, just that. Yeah, I would definitely think Inteleon here. I mean, it put in a ton of work here at the end, and then, but yeah, in the first game, KOing Cole through Protect, and it just put in a ton of work.
Yeah, it didn't pick up quite as many KOs, I guess, as Conkeldurr did, but it just put on that pressure, you know? And then you see, things like Thunderbolt T-Tar picking off the Urshifu, so this special set really did kind of work out for him this week.
Yeah, no, it did. Paul played great. He played really good this week, and it was, like I said, he had a really good team here and a great, just a great match altogether.
Great match, great result in terms of for Paul. So,
yeah.
Ian's team is really good. I think he decided to bring basically the same team as last week, is what I heard. So, I'm not going to give him any extra flack, and I'm not going to pull any punches either because, you know, it's up to each coach to make sure they get in the prep they need for the week. So, Paul picking up a 2-0, going to bring him to 1-1 and 0 differential as well. So,
yep.
Like he said.
I believe with Ian as well, he had 2-0s last week, so he's also at a 1-1 with a 0 differential. So there's that theme going on there.
Just absolutely crazy how the middle shuffle of this league is going to be shaken out.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, we will move on to the next game, which is mine, actually, I believe, here. And I did play Michael Fawcett, who played Neil week 1. We weren't able to get that game into the last review, so I'll just kind of give it a little shout out here. Michael did 2-0 Neil, who's the host of the league, and obviously a very, very strong VGC player. And he did so with a very powerful Max Ferrothorn, which looked nice last week.
Yeah, no, the Max I watched that, and the Max Ferrothorn just put a ton of work, and then I really think this match had probably my favorite tech of the week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got your mascot namesake, basically, so...
So what he brought is actually something I've used in a draft league before. I brought, it's a little bit of split, but I think he technically had Power Band on it.
Power Bracer.
Or Power Bracer. I brought Iron Ball, Dracovish, or there's a few of the power items that basically do the same thing of halving its speed.
Macho Brace, I think, does it as well, yeah.
Yeah, Macho. There's a and so bringing the Trick Room Dracovish was a really big bring for him this week. I think a lot of times you would see Dracovish and your initial thought is that it's either going to be scarfed or potentially banded, but it's actually has a fairly low base speed that it can, with the Power Bracer or with Iron Ball, it can really abuse in Trick Room. That's kind of what happened in this game.
Yeah, its speed is very middling. And then when I prepped for this team, I definitely didn't expect Avalugg, but everything else on his roster, I did put in some preparation for. I think the biggest thing is, I just went back and forth. I probably changed up my team 3 or 4 times. And originally I had Audino, which would have been a lot better, I think, support-wise. Able to reverse the Trick Room if I wanted to do something like that. But this game... Game 1 was a total slaughter, basically. Game 2, I attempted to make some conversions in the way I played, and I had a miss, and then I had a crit back-to-back, so it really, really kind of screwed up my momentum. I'll just kind of click play here. As you can see, he's going to lead with the same lead as he led in Game 1, which is the Oranguru Dracovish. I expected the TR to come out here and missed my play rough, which was really unfortunate. He does get the... Fishes off and goes for the TR. Another Fishes brings me down low. Play rough can't KO Dracovish. I found that out Game 1 as well, so ideally I'd have been able to double into that, but that wasn't really an option. And then at this point, I go for the ally switch as he goes for the Fishes. Get the liquidation off to kill the Dracovish. Out comes Avalugg, and the Max Quake is going to crit and kill my Marowak. That being said, it's kind of inconsequential at this point, because once the TR went up, it was basically game over at that point.
Yeah. That's what, I think, like you said, I think Audino would have been a really good bring here to maybe help with some of that Trick Room to potentially reverse Trick Rooms as needed, or...
Yeah, I did originally have that, but... and I was so concerned about the Ferrothorn that I just started slapping a lot of offense onto this team. In terms of the Marowak, the only thing I had before I decided to return Marowak to the team was Flamethrower or Dragapult, which, as you can see, wasn't going to be enough, especially with the Oranguru there and the Dracovish and TR, all that stuff sitting around. So, in the end, I really think Avalugg truly was kind of the coolest bring that he brought, because it's going to soak up all those attacks. It's going to... My team is very physical, and to try and bring Nihilego for me was almost a non-option because of things like the Ferrothorn. Mostly the Ferrothorn. The Ferrothorn was just so scary for me to prep for, especially after I saw what it did in week 1. So
yeah, well, and I think, that's one of the things with Draft League is finding ways, and I feel like Michael did a really good job this week of exploiting what you're dangerous with. He realized that Ferrothorn was very dangerous, and a lot of the things that would beat Ferrothorn would lose to Avalugg and Trick Room Dracovish.
Right.
And I feel like that's sometimes with Draft League you have to be thinking those 2 steps ahead of, this is what I have and this is what they're going to bring to counter what I have, and just being able to think those extra step ahead. I thought this was a really good example of that in his prep.
I think he did an amazing job. bringing the poison jab on Ferrothorn to bypass potential sap sipper from Azumarill was a really good idea. The other thing is I was really anticipating Incineroar to come, of course. I have a really physical team, so I thought that Incineroar would put in some really good work, even if it's just with Intimidate, Parting Shot, more of a supportive type spam. But we didn't even see the Incineroar come, which really put to waste a lot of things that I had in mind, the Mamo especially, so...
Yeah.
But anyhow, so that was an 0-2 week for me, which brings me to 1-1 and 0 differential as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, personally, if I'm looking at it, I don't really necessarily see any. Dracovish could be a potential offensive MVP. I'm not seeing a lot of potential defensive MVP. Maybe Avalugg, but these games didn't even last long enough, to be honest, for anyone to put in defensive work almost. But
I feel like that's been that way with all the matches we've discussed. There wasn't any great defensive plays so far. It's been a very... And I think you see that with a lot of 2-0s. It's a lot of hyper offense, a lot of fast-paced games ending in 5, 6, 4 turns even. I've seen some, so...
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of which, is this the game I'm thinking of? No, okay. This is Austin versus Nico. This was a really, really good matchup, actually. I think this one is our first one to have gone to 3 games, if I'm correct. Yep. Austin, you know his team. He's not bringing the Komodo this week, which snagged defensive MVP last week. But he's definitely got Rhyperior, which can put in some defensive work. Lots of tricks up his sleeve. We do see the Thwackey on Nico's team. Really interesting team from Nico here.
Probably again the MVP of this match for Nico was the we'll see. I believe it came up this game too, but he had Swords Dance Thwackey.
Yeah. It does come this game, but I think it's mostly just to reset terrains.
Yeah, it was mostly, and that was the other thing we talked. There was, we had earlier. He and Paul, we had the weather war, and now there was quite a bit of terrain war here, which was really interesting.
And here's a big right there. That's the mistake by Austin right there. The Eerie Impulse, not realizing that Thundurus was going to be able to absorb that. Definitely a big mistake when he could have put off some damage on the Snorlax.
Yeah, or even if you would have doubled up, Thunderbolt Max Phantasm honestly would have been close to KOing Thundurus, depending on what moves he had on Aleki.
Well, the problem is that Thundurus has Volt Absorb, so he can't Thunderbolt into it.
He would have been, yeah, that's true. So
hence why the Eerie Impulse was a bad play to begin with. The other thing that Aleki is running, though, is screens, I believe, so he could have had the potential to set up some screens for the end game.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel like he could have used...
Because you see the damage that Thunderbolt Expanding Force just did there, and it's a relatively good amount of damage, so...
Yeah, and if you would have already had a Thunderbolt, it would have been a big on that Snorlax, so...
And the Snorlax is packing me on. So far, I would have to say, I'm looking at Snorlax, and I'm thinking, there's a potential defensive MVP of the week.
Yeah, it just set up curses, and it was annoying, and it was bulky, and it just... Snorlax was really good for Nico this week.
Yeah, it took the damage that it needed to, threw off some yawns, Had a really good time that way. If grassy terrain's on the field, it's recovering really nicely a little bit too, so...
Yeah.
We see Gyarados wake up and finally get the KO on it, but it's too late as Thwackey gets the Woodhammer, taking out the Gyarados, and winning Game 3.
Overall, it was a really close set, that game.
Yeah, you can see he's got a Thwackey on the field, which is not a highly defensive Pokemon, and it's 1-0 win there, so definitely a very close game. Did you watch the other 2 matches from the set?
I did.
Do you remember Snorlax? Was Snorlax in those matches, both or one, or?
Snorlax is pretty bulky in those mons. The first game was Thwackey set up with the Swords Dance and just kind of swept through it. Swords Dancing Frank. I think Frank even maxed game 1.
Interesting.
But it put in a lot of work game 1, and then Austin was able to come back, win game 2, but then, like I said, I really do think Snorlax here is the most defensive one that I've seen so far in what we talked about, so.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, that puts Austin at 1-1, and
+1 differential, because he got
he got a win this week.
Yeah, and then Nico is the other 2-0 team, but both of his wins have been 2-1 wins. So he only has a +2 differential, but he's 2-0. So.
Right.
But
Yeah.
both of those have been close games. So.
Nico, I think, also one of the most slept on drafts, along with Michael's. Nico's was a little more highly rated than Michael's, but I think even then it was a little underrated, to be honest with you. It does have some more kind of parts that can sit on the field and get set up on, but it's a lot harder to do in VGC, so.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next game, we've got Weiss versus Neil again. So, little precursor to this, you beat Weiss 2-0 last week. Michael beat Neil 2-0 last week, so we got two teams that were winless in terms of both their weekly matchup and their differential. And yeah, here you can see Neil is going to be bringing the Hitmontop and Galar Articuno, two of his main feature mons, I think, this week in terms of the tech that he wanted to use against Weiss. And Weiss, I think, did some interesting stuff. Maybe brought a Pokemon that Neil might not have expected.
Yeah.
What did you think about it?
I thought it was a really good set. Articuno was a really good thing for Neil, but I feel like it was interesting here because you had both Blastoise and Swampert playing very similar roles for each team. Both of them were, a lot of it was yawn spam. Neil was trying to go with the very defensive. He had Iron Defense Body Press Blastoise, but the MVP from this set has to be the Rotom Fan that Weiss brought.
100%. 100%. It just kind of counteracted everything that Neil wanted to bring, and I don't think Neil wanted to bring the Glaceon, to be quite frank with you.
Yeah. And like, it just, especially because the biggest offensive pressure this week was with Blastoise and Articuno, and outside of that, there wasn't a ton of offense on Neil's side, and so...
you do have Coco there, but I mean, it's neutral,
Yeah. And just was able to max Lightning and picked up quite a few KOs with max Lightning and Airstream. And
setting up the Airstream was big, too. Yeah. So, Neil got 2-0'd again here. Again...
2-1.
Oh, 2-1. It was a 2-1. You're right. That's right. Okay. That's right. Okay. So Neil is looking at a 1-1 +1 differential then.
He's 0-2.
Oh, 0-2 plus... Wait.
-3.
-1 differential then, right?
-0-2 and then a 2-1.
Yeah.
So he's 0-2 with a -3 differential.
Crazy. It's definitely something that we didn't expect to see this early on. I don't know if he's just trying to meme too hard. I think he really did prep for this game the way he wanted to. I don't think he prepped properly for the Rotom Fan.
Yeah. No, like I said, in drafting, when you're able to find just one thing to give your, one mon your opponent doesn't prep for, it's really hard. And like I said, this game was probably, the other two games were a lot closer than this game.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
I didn't get to see the one that Neil won because I think Weiss accidentally posted the two losses.
Yeah, she accidentally posted both of the ones. But the other game was close. I would have been interested to see how Neil won.
Mm-hmm. And the games I did see, Rotom Fan definitely put in a lot of work.
Yeah.
It just matched up so well against his entire team. Like, Salazzle was kind of a questionable bring this week. I love Salazzle personally. You know, its ability to fake out, beat up, all kinds of cool stuff. Good coverage.
I would, yeah. I mean, I'm sure if Salazzle was brought as a View counter, I wouldn't even be surprised if, I don't know, I didn't see it enough, but it very well could have been like a safety goggle set to just really try to hard counter the Venu, which, I mean, I think that's something that Weiss did really well, because Venu Torkoal is such a dangerous combination, and I don't think was used much in the 2 games that Weiss won.
No. But the thing I'm thinking is, Venu does have Earth Power, so if it gets off the Chlorophyll, it can OHKO something like a Safety Goggles Salazzle. I believe the Salazzle is Focus Sash, if I'm correct.
That would make sense that it would be Focus Sash. So.
So even then, I think that Weiss could have dealt with it in a pretty reasonable manner. So maybe a misplay, because I know that in both the games I saw, he brought the Salazzle. So maybe not making the calibrations that he needed to make, maybe not having the things in the back that he needed to calibrate properly with. But Neil taking another loss this week. And Weiss is 1-1 with an even differential. Or no, +1 differential.
-1 differential, because it was 0-2 and then 2-1.
Yeah, okay.
So I wrote notes of the standings.
That's good, I'm glad, because I'm like, I thought you said something earlier that was different, but if that's how the differential works, then that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. Well, I'm glad she's at -1.
Yeah.
Moving on. Oh no. Hold on a sec. I just deleted one of the wrong tabs. We can figure out in a minute. Let's see.
We have...
So this one is Matt Chaw versus Aaron.
Yes.
This last week I actually mocked with both Paul and Matt. So I was excited to see Paul win, of course, despite against some competition that was not maybe properly prepped for. Matt Chaw, I really had some confidence in going into this week. He performed well against Mega Umbreon last week. And he has some pieces that can, as he does have a semi-rain team, he has some pieces that can help him counteract Aaron's rain team. What did you think of his matchup going into this game?
The rain was, I think, it was an interesting matchup because the rain seemed to, you have the Seismitoad and Benef. That was a really good rain counter. Thunderous kind of is a good rain counter, but Aaron played really well, not using the rain to his advantage, but not completely relying on it. I think both, made some really good plays to not just understanding that, rain could help him, but it wasn't his best win condition.
Yeah, you see things like Mienshao, which are always great support and just some instant offense mons. But I think the real superheroes in terms of shining outside of the rain here were Galar Moltres and Glaster, of course. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. We'll play this, which is their game 3. They went to 3, I believe?
Yeah, they...
or is this a 2-0?
Aaron, I think Aaron 2-0'd, actually.
He did 2-0. Yeah, maybe he did.
Yeah, because they actually made the same plays both games. He just tailwinded and Muddy Water both games, and Muddy Water was able to do a lot of damage just to get some good.
Is this an offensive Pelipper, like to some degree? Do you think? Because I think you're going to see the Weather Ball come off here and just clean KO the Thunderous.
Yeah, I would assume it would have had to be at least somewhat offensively oriented.
Yeah.
But then, Moltres is able to come in. He, after
gets the speed boost.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was surprised. I think that Matt's Rotom did pack the Charty Berry, if I'm correct, this week again. And
yeah,
You didn't see Regirock come this week, so it might have been a wasted tech in that regard.
Yeah. No, there was some. Like I said, I thought Aaron played really well in this game. He just he understood his outs and what he needed to do. Moltres put in a lot of work.
Yeah. And then another thing is you're looking here and you're seeing his Seismitoad and Rotom sitting side by side, and all they can do is support. They're just slowing down the opponent, not doing a lot of damage, Eerie Impulsing, which is nice for Galar Moltres, don't get me wrong, but you see this Avalanche come off of Glastrier and just absolutely decimate the Seismitoad, which to me was really surprising.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I would say from Matthew, just I feel like there was just maybe a little bit too much reliance on Thundurus for damage output. He just didn't have enough. When he was able to get rid of Thundurus, so really that was the vast majority of his damage output was from Thundurus. Because once the rains up, Rotom couldn't do much. Seismitoad was a support. Everything else other than Thundurus was really kind of a support mon, and so I just think Matthew just didn't have enough damage output, and so Aaron was able to take that to his advantage and win it here.
I believe Seismitoad was AV, so it did have some attacking moves and some offensive output, but it doesn't dish out a heck of a ton of damage. Thundurus definitely being his main offensive output, and everything else just looking kind of supportive, you're right. I know the Bronzong was a support set, and I kind of would love to have seen him bring that, because I think the set that he brought could have helped him in the situations that he found himself in, facing Tailwind. I mean, it was a TR set. I'll be straight up with you guys, because Bronzong brings TR. It's no surprise to anyone, but
yeah.
Against, Glastrier, definitely a threat, but Bronzong takes on Glastrier relatively well. And the rest of the team, TR could have really helped against, so. Good game by Matthew. He's had a lot of good ideas, but just hasn't been able to pull anything off quite yet, which I find surprising as he went to the semifinals of the last draft league that I was in with him, so.
Yeah.
That being said, he's now 0-2 with a -3 differential, I guess you'd call it.
Yep, I believe so.
He had a 0-2, or no, he had a 2-1 and an 0-2, so.
Yeah.
Good game here. Any potential offensive MVPs you see coming from maybe Aaron's side at all? Or was it just kind of a mixed bag?
Moltres picked up a lot of KOs, especially, but I wouldn't say it was an MVP just because it picked up a lot of and in game one I know it picked up a double fiery wrath KO to end the game in game one.
Yeah, on two fairly riddled opponents.
A lot of balance. Kingdra did a ton of damage in the early game. Pick up a cut, was able to whittle things down, and then the amount of spread moves Aaron had was also really helpful here, and just being able to get Muddy Water damage off, Fiery Wrath damage off.
You see Pelipper throwing off Weather Balls and KOing things too, Glastrier with its Avalanche, so he kind of spread the love around a little bit, which is good for him. He got the 2-0, but doesn't make for a great offensive MVP necessarily.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyhow, we will move into... Okay, this was... Great, I just spoiled it for you guys. No. So this was Jamie versus Vincent. Game 2 of 2. And I gotta say right off the bat here, I think Vincent does have a really good matchup. Aerodactyl looks amazing. Whimsicott Charizard looks amazing, like it always does, of course. What are your observations going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for Vince, just looking at, you have so many really scary duos, whether that's Whimsicott Charizard, Whimsicott Lucario could look scary with Vita. Using Regigigas is always strong, and then in game one he maxed Aerodactyl, and that just put in massive work. And so I think it was a tough position because there was just so much. There was three or four really potent combinations for Vince to put out there. It's just hard to know what to lead and how to prep to be able to handle with all of those at the same time. And I felt Vince played really good to get the best out of his team.
Yeah, I think Arrow is easily one of the best bottom tier pickups. I had it a few seasons ago in VGC Draft. I actually picked it up like halfway through the season, and it just put in the most insane amount of work. You look at Jamie's team here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 mons that are just straight up weak to Aerodactyl right off the bat. And when you have Whimsicott side by side with it, able to throw off Tailwinds, Helping Hands, you're not worried about... I mean, it's already such a fast mon. You're not worried about outspeeding anything. And it just went to town. It just went to town on this team. This team, I think, more so Charizard, or this game, I think, more so Charizard did the work.
Yeah, this game, Charizard just put in a ton of work. And I think, it's just interesting, the Whimsicott being able to support it with Sunny Day was really, really big.
Yeah, you see it takes a resonance here, and the Wildfire going to be huge in this game, too.
Yeah, the Wildfire just, as it does often, it just sits there and whittles down the Lapras, which, yes, he was able to get the Aurora Veil up, but it just doesn't do that much with the... you get the Wildfire to go around that and still put off lots of damage and not having to worry about the screens.
Yeah, you see it pick off her Shifu there, even with the Sash. And then at the end of this game, I believe he doubles into the Lapras, isn't able to quite take it out, but the Wildfire does, so... Oh, along with the Confusion and self-hit.
Yeah, so a little bit of fortunate RNG, but that Confusion, of all the RNG we've seen, that Confusion I don't think mattered at all, because even...
He has 2 other Mons in the back right now, yeah.
Yeah, there was no way Lapras was winning that. So I thought, like I said, Vince played really good there. It was a pretty simple... like I said, Arrow and Charizard both put in a ton of work there that could potentially be, offensive Mons, but I still don't... I still go back to the best ones I've seen are Intel and Console there so far.
Yeah. Fair enough. I agree. Okay, now we hunt down this game that I accidentally exited out of.
Let's... Chris and Mega Umbreon.
It was Chris and Mega. Yeah, let's see.
I think it's...
There it is.
Major... Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Okay. This was a good one as well, actually. I'm glad we're ending with this one, to be frank with you.
This is so... I will just say this right here. This is my pick for Game of the Week.
I'm right there with you. I was going to say that too. 100% this is my pick for Game of the Week.
Yeah. No, it was a great match. There was a lot of RNG happened in both of the matches I watched here. There was some...
So crazy. You're seeing crits, power whip misses, lots of crits.
Power misses.
Hypnosis lands. I don't know that he missed the Hypnosis.
So,
yeah,
really good thing.
We'll roll that in the background.
A lot of work, but Rillaboom was able to counter it pretty well.
Yeah, Shandy, I think, was kind of a liability this game, actually. I think this is... Because they led the same 2 of these games. The 2 that I watched here, they led exactly the same.
Yeah.
And Chris was just able to do the same thing.
Getting big. Even at this point, it's a pretty evenly matched game here. They've gotten an early KO. A little bit... Both of these were a little bit slower paced games than some of them.
Yeah, you see the Hypnosis landing there on Suicune, which for sure is a little bit annoying when you see the Hypnosis land time and time again. Swords Dance comes off from the Rillaboom. This triple axle is not going to be able to take out Drifblim by any means. And the cool thing about Drifblim is its Strength Sap move, which is going to allow it to heal up and reduce Serena's attack.
Yeah, no. Drifblim, honestly, outside of, we mentioned earlier, it was a very good defensive mon this week, and it did some other good stuff, but it put in a lot of work defensively to be able to strength sap and hypnosis and hit the hypnosis consistently and tailwind. It was really good, and I felt like this game in specific, like once Rillaboom got Swords Danced up, it was a uphill battle for sure at that point.
Yeah, definitely nice to grab the Scald Burn on the Rillaboom, but
yeah,
probably a bit too little too late. You see the Ice Beam coming off and doing nothing.
I like to Hypnosis. There's another Hypnosis that it hit on Landorus, so it's just able to strength sap it. And
yeah, we're definitely going to have to put Drifblim in the running for defensive MVP alongside Snorlax, I think.
Yeah, I just with the amount of Hypnosis it hit, the strength saps that it was able to do, it just put in a ton of work.
And I think you're going to see... Is this the one where the FF comes through? Yeah, I think so. Which is fair. I mean, it's a foregone conclusion. He does get the flinch there even, but yeah. Just nothing you can do.
It's just at that point, you're just able to sit there and Landorus can't touch Drifloon. It's just gonna sit there and strength zap and
yeah, and just whittle Landorus down and then start damaging it with Shadow Ball or whatever. Yeah, really well played by Chris. I think he definitely prepped extremely well for this game.
So, for sure. I thought it was a great game, and I think, overall, this is, like I said, this is probably the game of the week, and I think watching this one back, and I do think Drifblim was probably the defensive mon of the week.
I agree, too.
Snorlax was close, but there was so much work done here by Drifblim.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was something that his opponent didn't just quite really plan for, because he didn't have Chandelure there, but Drifloon is definitely going to be able to outbulk Chandelure most of the time. And he has other threats that are able to fairly well deal with Chandelure as well. So you're looking at things like the Rotom Wash specifically. Yep.
So like I said, I think, it's still a super close league. There's, as you said, there's 2 teams that are 2-0 and 2 that are 0-2, and
everybody else in the middle.
And everybody else in the middle. So it's very open. It's very,
Yeah, because now Chris is 1-1, 0 differential.
Yep.
So another one of those 1-1, 0 differentials. Mega Umbreon is now 1-1, 0 differential as well.
Yeah.
Because he played a best of 3 with Matt Chaw last week, which he won, and vice versa this week. So.
Yeah. No, like I said, it was very good, close games.
Yeah. I feel bad about my game for sure, but you know what? At the same time, you always take things that you see in the game and you're like, okay, this is what I need to do to manipulate my team building to do a better job in Draft League, because I personally didn't expect Avalugg to come just because it's Avalugg, but you got to be ready for those types of things. You got to see those types of defensive matchups before you start planning for your game. So,
and I think over the next couple weeks is what we'll see. I think we will start to see a little bit of separation, just as we see the people who do put in their prep, who do, even doing homework of watching your opponent's previous matches, seeing what they're doing, seeing what kind of things they like. I really feel like over the next, being able to adjust to how people are playing their team
yeah, even getting more comfortable with your team, like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And making the necessary transactions, perhaps, to even bolster your team a little bit further. So.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm really excited to see how it keeps going forward. And
so before we sign off, I think we have a game of the week here in Chris versus Mega, and a defensive MVP in Drifblim. What's your offensive MVP?
I would probably have to go with Inteleon. I think watching it, it's really close between Inteleon and Conkeldurr. But I think I'd give the edge to Inteleon. I think just picking up a KO on Colossal through Protect. That play just sticks out as one of the biggest of the week to just like completely win a game, to just have a play like that.
Well, and for me, Conkeldurr picked up the more raw KOs. You know, it actually ended up putting out the most in terms of KOs and maybe even raw damage. But the threat that Inteleon was by setting up that focus of energy and just being able to OHKO or near OHKO everything with its automatic crits made it the offensive MVP for me as well.
For sure.
So, oh man, what another great week in this draft league. Looking forward to week 3, and thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed coming on. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Good luck in your matches for the rest of the league.
Yeah, who do you have this week?
I have Ian.
Ooh, okay. That's a pretty tough matchup.
Right now for Colossal and all sorts of
Urshifu, yeah, Rapid Strike and all that good stuff.
Yeah. It should be an interesting match.
Well, good luck to you as well, man.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. And to everyone who's watching, please comment with your game of the week, offensive MVP, and defensive MVP. We'll see you back here again in week 3. And for now, guys, we are signing off. Peace out. See you next week.